On this episode of the podcast, I have with me Rob Phillips. He is the Director of Technology at CarMax. We're going to be talking about data transformation. CarMax has an amazing amount of data at their disposal, and we're going to be talking about, Rob, about how you become more data-driven, what that means to the company, when along the maturity path you start looking to really refine your roadmap and re-examine things and lessons learned. Rob, excited to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Amir.
Absolutely. Let's start off at the top. Two things. One, I'm pretty sure most people have heard of CarMax, but tell us what CarMax does. And secondly, Director of Technology, what are some of those responsibilities that you have there?
Certainly. So CarMax, many people you've seen the commercials. We came about back in 1993 to change the way that people buy used cars. At that time, it was one of those areas people hated coming in and haggling with vehicles or about cars. And prices. So we created the concept of a no-haggle car buying experience. So over the course of almost 30 years now, we've become and remain the largest used car retailer in the United States. Many people know that, but what you don't know is there's a number of other aspects about the company that is also just, it surprises me as I learned about the group. But we move more cars than anybody else probably in the United States. We probably move around 2 million vehicles a year. We sell close to 1 million retail vehicles. We will do the same on the wholesale side as well. So there's another avenue of our business. We also do service work. And then we provide loans on a number of our vehicles. I think we're right now in the top 10 in used car lending also across the United States. So we're a manufacturer, a retail, a logistics company, a service company, and a bank all at once. I think the only thing we're not is into the insurance industry. As far as your second question, as the Director of Technology, I am really responsible for the leadership, the change leadership, to support the technology transformations that we are doing across the organization. I oversee a team of close to about 100 people right now, really responsible for the taking our data, making it the best that it can be, using some technology for master data management of customers and vehicles, also standing up our capabilities that supported all of our data science and machine learning and taking those into the next generation, really.
Absolutely. I mean, it all sounds exciting. It sounds like a lot of challenges. I guess before we even start, I'd like to, you mentioned obviously the 2 million cars. That seems like a lot of data. Just to give everyone some context, how much data do you guys deal with in terms of just volume size?
It's way terabytes and terabytes, or tens and tens of terabytes of data. I'd probably say it's closer on the order of 200 to 300 terabytes. Is probably what we've got sitting in our data lake at this point. But you think about the lifespan of a vehicle as it comes through. We have the view. If you think about all the other people that deal with vehicles, we've got the complete end-to-end view of everything about a vehicle. So from the time it took, whatever it costs to bring a vehicle in, so we understand like what's the appraisal market on it. We know what it takes to recondition that vehicle and get it back to standards. We know how long it takes to sell it, where it sells at, for how much it sells for, who it sells to. We understand how long those loans get tracked and, how people are paying off those loans. We understand the service history of it. And then we typically understand as it comes back into that lifestyle, that market, that customer's done with the vehicle, what happens to it after the fact? Can it be resold as another retail vehicle, or does it have to be wholesaled off? So again, there's about 40 million vehicles that get sold in the used vehicles that get sold in the United States. We are selling on the retail side about 4% of those, but we have hooks into a number of places where we are understanding what's happening in the wholesale market. So we see, I would say on an average, probably data on at least half of the vehicles that get sold in the United States.
That's staggering. That's so much data. My mind starts, thinking about what you could do with all that. And let's maybe start with that. We're going to be talking about data transformation and how company can take advantage of that. So at the current, your job is obviously, you mentioned, to bring a lot of this digital transformation about, and maybe we could talk about what, you guys have a lot of data. What does it mean to become a data-driven company, like for a company like CarMax?
I think so. A couple of things that it means, but it means to be able to make better decisions on your data. So predicting, I think the ultimate goal is to be able to understand what's going to happen, not looking at what happened in the past based upon some decision, but really understanding if I'm going to make some future decision, what's going to be the ultimate impact of that. That's where the data science and AI capabilities come in. But in order to make sure you can have that, you got to have a great foundation. You've got to make sure that the data that you have is accurate, it's complete, all of the aspects that you can read across as far as data quality, that all exists. And that you also have some ways to actually do measure business outcomes. So those are kind of the first two things. Make sure you have what you're governing and having a good catalog of everything that you have, making sure that you can measure what it is that you have so that your predictions, you can then come back and validate your predictions as you do tests to see, did they actually give me the right business outcomes that I was looking for?
Absolutely. And I guess as you're kind of, your responsibilities to set the table, set the future, set the vision of the capabilities the company is looking to bring to leverage all this data. When you look at that aspect of your job and who you have to interface with, maybe talk a little bit about that aspect. Obviously, you've got to set a roadmap. You understand the company's within the data science AI space. Obviously, you're trying to help solve other business problems that you might not even be aware of yet. But how does that work at a company as large as CarMax, where there's seemingly probably so many moving parts, but yet this has got to be core, capability that's going to give you guys an advantage?
Yes, I mean it's part of our strategic roadmap to make more decisions and be more efficient using data. You think about there's two different ways companies can run. You can be either in an innovation mode of I've got to create the next best thing to make me better than my competitors, or the other half is I've got to go figure out ways to become more efficient. Use data to do both of those things. So I think that's the first part, is understanding where you're headed as a company. You need to spend more in the innovation side or more in becoming more efficient. Market conditions can change. And you need to react to those things as well. So when it comes into helping build that strategy for what needs to happen, it's talking to stakeholders that are out there. It's not me doing it for sure. There's a chief data officer at CarMax. There's a team of people. I'm just one of the little pieces in that puzzle that's really helping influence what it is that we're doing. My role too is to pick the right technologies to enable those things that are happening, and it's also to keep a network and keep an eye on what else is going on in the organization, so that I can be aware of things that are coming down the pipe for those changes.
Yeah, that seems very interesting, and I think you're, as you mentioned, your job is to evaluate technology. I know your responsibility is still to make sure the company's delivering, but you have that eye towards future capabilities, emerging technologies. I guess build versus buy is always going to crop up, and the ROI of customizing, versus having it tailored to you. When you're trying to look at emerging technologies and think about what the company can benefit from, what do you have a personal ethos around build versus buy? Because I know there's no science; it's an art in this case.
I don't know if it's a personal one, but we do have it at CarMax. Shamim Mohammed, who's our CIO, CTO, he has touted this, and it's stuck with me. And it makes a whole lot of sense. And I don't go build versus buy. It's a rent versus buy versus build. And you can do them in those orders. I think that's one of the key things to think about when you're looking at that first side of it. It's about time to market. If you're renting something, there's a whole lot less risk involved with selecting that piece of technology. So I can pick up, now that we have the clouds that are out there and service providers, you can turn up almost any service and turn it on Monday and turn it off on Friday if it doesn't work for you. You don't have to sign some multi-year, multi-million-dollar agreement with those things. That's a key thing that people, I think, don't fully appreciate, that you don't have to go through this giant full-on evaluation. Just pick something up, understand what your MVP is, what your basics of what you're trying to do, pick it, prove it, use it. And then if you need to go back further and talk about a longer term agreement, whether it's with that vendor or finding somebody else that's maybe has that next thing that you need, go there. I think in today's world, the speed in which everything is changing. speed in which everything is changing, you can't afford to say, I'm going to hook all my eggs into building something from scratch. It takes too long. You may need to do that to beat all the competition. But in the meantime, get that thing off the shelf, plug it in, and start getting some value. It's back to like the agile principles. Put the minimal thing in there to start getting value. Don't do a waterfall project and build everything.
Absolutely. And that's a great way of talking about it. Rent versus buy versus build. I like how you defined that rent piece. I guess because of that, do you guys tend to test more products? More MVPs to kind of prove out ideas? Is that part of the process for the company?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is, we are a product organization. So I was looking for the title of the book I wanted to reference, but it's a pile of books over there. But that is what you want to do in this world that's moving so quickly. Is you want to, when it comes to new capabilities and new things you want to do for your customers, you want to test them. You want to come up with a hypothesis, put it out there, test it, and get moving with it. There's a balance. There is a balance that I want to also say in there, because not everything, in my opinion, needs to be run as a product or a dual track environment. There are some things that are just key and foundational that you need to do. For example, I need let's say I'm going to sell things online. Well, I need an e-commerce platform to be able to sell things online. There are some basic building blocks of an e-commerce platform. I need a shopping cart. I need a way to process those orders. I need a way to send those things to an order fulfillment. Those things that don't require a lot of interactions with our customer, the user experience, you just need the foundation. Those are the things I think you can just start to build and don't have to worry about testing.
Absolutely. And I guess, if you can, I was curious, you mentioned obviously, renting, moving quickly, testing hypothesis. Is there an example of something you could share that kind of went through this process and has gone into production and it has become, a core capability?
Sure. So one of the things that we do as a company is we buy a lot of vehicles from consumers. Part of buying a used vehicle, there's a lot that goes into understanding what that vehicle is and what that value. And for us, in our business, most people who are selling us a vehicle, they're selling us a vehicle because they want to buy a vehicle at the same time. Historically, we've been very cautious to be able to just put offers out for our customers online. We through COVID, some other things that, the market conditions changed and we started to get into a world. And when we purchased Edmunds too, we were able to uncouple the car buying purchase from the process of somebody that says, I want to just appraise my vehicle. Because if they were coming into an Edmunds just shopping, they're not necessarily buying one of our cars, so they're not one of our customers. But it gave us the ability to understand what kind of information I need to gather on a vehicle that I've never laid eyes on. I don't understand the scratches and the dents or what the conditions of the tires are, to be able to put an offer on that vehicle that, one, meets the customer's needs, but two, doesn't put us at too much risk of overvaluing that vehicle. And then it shows up in our stores and like, wow, they were way off. They said it was a great condition car and it's got rust through the floorboards, that kind of things. That was one of those things, though. We were able to test in a small area. We understood what it took to do those. We refined some of those models and the questions that we asked to those customers. And now we rolled that thing out and it's across the entirety of our stores and everywhere we support. And it's running gangbusters for us.
Wow. I mean, that sounds like, when you mentioned, get that MVP out, get the capability out, then get everyone to at least incrementally improve something. I love that, because I think too many times we're worried about getting it right and the consequences of it. But that small test, I mean, what I'm hearing is, like you guys almost sound like I could be talking to a company that's working in Silicon Valley on a high-tech startup. I mean, you guys could be talking about, AI, computer vision projects that take a picture of a car to help you evaluate value. I mean, there's some crazy stuff that you guys could be doing. It doesn't sound like a car. Like if I'm thinking CarMax, I'm not thinking this level of innovation probably. And you probably have some secret stuff that you can't talk about, but I wouldn't assume that. And I guess, you guys are a legacy, not legacy company. You guys are an older company. You've been around for a while. dominant leader in your segment. How do you position that, especially when you're going to get talent and you're talking about high talent that's compete, Google and Microsoft and all those people want these same people. How do you guys position the opportunity? It sounds exciting. Like when you talk about it, I'm like, man, this would be a great place to join.
Yeah, it's a culture change that has been happening ever since I started at the organization. So I think it was back 2010, 2011. We started our previous CIO, Richard Smith. He started something called Anything Days, where we would shut down technology for 2 days a year. We would bring in food and whatnot and say, hey, anybody in technology, you've got some problem that you're working on, something you're curious about, something you want to explore, something that's a pain in your everyday life. You have 2 days, go put together a team of people. We're not going to bother you with anything for work-wise. Put together a team and go make this happen. Go build this POC. That has happened every single year since I've been at the company. It's evolved now where it's no longer called Anything Days. It's actually called Innovation Garage. But at the end of those Innovation Garage days, we do a Shark Tank too, where we talk. Teams come in, they put together a quick, few-minute video. They present it out to the exec team of here's my idea and here's my POC and here's what I did. And it drives, from then they get awards and some of those things turn into patents. Some of them turn into projects and say, yeah, this is a fully funded project. Go with it. But it drives a lot of fun and excitement through those things, and they will drive off projects. I can talk about there was a computer vision. You mentioned computer vision. There was actually a computer vision project where one of our associates, it was just a few years, or actually it was a year out of school. He had this idea. It's like, I want to take a picture of a vehicle and be able to recognize the characteristics and find other vehicles that are similar to it. For example, like that is Ford Thunderbird that they no longer make, but I love the way it looks. And you can take a picture of it and it could show me other vehicles similar to it. So that kind of was one idea, but that then totally evolved into, well, instead of for vehicle recommendations, can I find other vehicles if I'm on my lots that are similar to what I'm looking? If you look at the spectrum of cars, they're no longer just, sedan, coupe, minivan. There is this large spectrum. And can I take a image of a vehicle and can that help recommend what other things that are out there? And that's, again, has continued to evolve of now I understand, I can understand to take a picture of a vehicle out of all the background of everything that's going out of there and be able to manipulate to highlight the vehicle and not all the other junk that's happening in the background, whether they're people walking around in the background or other cars in the background or just, dirt because we're in dirty environments at times. But all of that innovation sparks a culture, and the culture change is what we want to have our managers and our leaders in technology be able to recognize when associates have ideas and be able to help champion and keep that moving. So whether it's a brand new idea that you have or just an idea that helps get more efficient in the way you're working, those are the things that we help encourage and drive here at CarMax. And it goes into quarterly surveys and understanding the level of engagement that your associates have. For them to be able to exercise when they aren't people that are just punching keys and running widgets. I'm hiring very bright, very intelligent people. I want them to understand a problem and I want them to come up with a creative solution for that problem. I don't want to tell them how to do their job. We take that and you got to do a whole lot of marketing around it. We put together marketing videos. We do a lot of training for our associates on how do you get out in LinkedIn? How do you make the noise of what it is that we're doing and share that excitement with folks that are out there? Because, let's face it, everybody wants to go work at one of the FANG companies. If I could put a CarMax, the acronym in there, I would. And if people, you're right, they don't think of CarMax as a technology company, but we are doing tons and tons of really, really, really cool stuff.
Now it sounds super exciting, and that's an interesting option for people to have, because I think there's a stigma around you have to either be one of the FANGs in the Bay Area or a startup someplace else where that's how the fast pace and the growth can happen, versus you got a company that has the tools. I mean, you guys have your own budgets, but you have the ability to take advantage of opportunities as a market leader and stay ahead. So it's quite interesting because I think based on everything you're telling me and everything I'm hearing, it sounds like you could basically compete with talent against a FANG. You just have to bring some of that realization. Like you said, you're doing the marketing behind it, make sure people are aware that this opportunity exists.
Yeah, I think we compete in a way where instead of being a giant, an Amazon and a Facebook, yes, we are large. I think we're about 1,500 people in technology, but we allow, and again, when I say allow, this comes straight from the CTO, Shamim, that he asks managers on his team, like, you need to run your team as it's your own department, it's your own company, you're the own CIO of your company. So you give that team, like, here's your mission and goals. Go forth and conquer whatever you need to do. Make those decisions and move quickly.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you, based on kind of what you're doing, and you have all this innovation, and you guys have all these, you have your innovation garage, and that stuff comes up, and you're testing. How do you balance the team's efforts, right? Like, I mean, you still have to deliver, but you want them to still have an eye towards some of this innovation stuff, testing out hypotheses. Is there, how does that balance look for the team when you're kind of going through it?
I think you can, there's the other book that is out there, the Measure What Matters book, I think the OKR book from Michael Dorr. But it's that type of mentality. If you give the team the problem to solve, because you want them to deliver the business result, right? I'm not telling them exactly how to do it. I'm not telling them go build this widget. I'm telling them this is what I want the outcome of that thing to be, and you allow them the creativity to figure out how to solve that problem, however that may be. And that's a short and simple answer, but it doesn't need to be overly complicated. I don't want to tell people how to do their jobs. I want to give them the end goal of what we're trying to get. What's my business outcome? And let them get creative. A lot of brains in a room, or several brains in a room, are going to be way better than especially mine.
I think actually, with what you said, that's really interesting, because I think the stigma of people when they think about technology within older companies or public companies or bigger entities is decisions are made for you and you just have to go do. And I think what you just said is it's putting out the problem, what the opportunity is, whatever the case might be, and having, a group of people go help find a solution. I think that's what, when we look at some of this differences of why people go, the FANG, is they believe that opportunity is just readily available. But I think you just articulated it brilliantly.
Yeah. And then we use it, if you get back to those experiments, you're using the data to then validate, did that experiment do what I was looking for it to do?
Awesome. Rob, I was going to say thanks for coming on. I know cognizant of our time with each other. I always like to ask guests that are on if there is a question or a topic that you'd love a future leader to come on and talk about. What would that be?
I mentioned it earlier about the movement from looking at metrics that happened in the past towards what's happening in the future. Love to hear others' thoughts on how do you make that move? What's that roadmap? What's that transition look like for other companies? What are the bumps and challenges? And I will say that there's some technology players that are out there, whether it's a Snowflake and a Databricks, but how are the two of them competing against one another in that movement space?
Absolutely. That's a good one. Hopefully we can find someone talk about that. And if somebody wants to just connect with you on anything you mentioned on the podcast, what's a good way of getting a hold of you?
Best way to find me is on LinkedIn. I'm sure you'll put the link to it or mention it here in your notes for the meeting.
Absolutely. We will do that. Again, Rob, thanks for being on. Thanks for sharing. Super, super great episode.
All right. I appreciate it. Thanks, Amir.
Absolutely. That's it for this episode. Be back again. Different guest, different topic. Until then, two things. One, I think the topic Rob mentioned is great. Not looking at past metrics, but looking at future and how do you transition to that viewpoint. That'd be great if somebody could come on, or if you know someone that could talk about it or has gone through it, hit me up. I'd like to have you on. And secondly, if the podcast has been useful and you have found some value to it, please share it, leave a review wherever you listen to. That's how the podcast has been growing. So thank you. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.